Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I actually grew up in Colorado, and I have been farming here for the last 4 years on a small family farm. We have goats that people have heard about because I talk about them a lot when I go and have interviews and stuff like that. So we have goats, and we grow vegetables for market and for a restaurant in Ukiah.
Farmers market here in town?
Farmers market here in town.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great. And where's the farmers market here in town?
The farmers market in 2 weeks will actually start back outside again.
Right.
And that will be across from City Hall in the park, at the far end of the park there.
Right now it's at the Little Lake Grange.
Yeah, the next 2 weeks.
Before you went up in the tree, what did you envisioning happening?
I think a lot of what was really interesting about this whole experience was that it was really all just kind of on a whim and really day to day. It wasn't like I was like, I'm gonna do a tree sit and I planned this for weeks and weeks and weeks. I learned all the climbing and everything I needed to know,
prior to
getting 2 days before, and then I went up the tree. It was a very just whimsical thing. I mean, it wasn't that we didn't think of it through. It was a really excellent strategy, which is why we chose it, because it's a really good way to kind of sustain a presence in a place. This is a place, it doesn't belong to anybody, but it needs somebody's protection, and so it was just sort of a way to make sure that that land remained, as is, and the only way we're going to do that with trespassing things in the mix was by having someone up in a tree and not accessible.
Mm-hmm.
So it ended up working out really well, and so when I got up there, I wasn't expecting to be so popular. I thought I would have all this time by myself, just sitting up there next to the highway and being like, what do I do now? I'm gonna read a book. I'm done with my books. What do I do now? This is boring. I'll try to connect with my tree. All this stuff was like going through my head, but in reality I didn't have like a second some days. Most days there was so much support, people just driving in off the highway who just wanted to talk. I'm on the walkie-talkie, I'm on 3 cell phones.
People are singing to you.
People would come out and play music. People came out and danced. We had movie nights at the tree sit. I mean, it just kind of became this community hubbub. It was really this place where people came and felt like they were a part of something, and so I definitely didn't expect that at all. So I think the people of this community they made me into what they wanted to see, if that makes sense. It was just kind of they needed some kind of like, this is what, this is like this woman up in a tree on the inside, like this is like our beacon, this is this just kind of helped really mobilize things, I think. And it was and people were just way more supportive than I
ever
expected.
Imagined.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
When you went on your hunger strike, I think it was March 28th, correct?
Yeah, that was a 2-month mark.
Yeah. I talked to a couple of people that have sat in a tree, and 3 days, 2 days, and they said, I went crazy on the second day, and I was calling everybody from my community, and nobody answered, and I was up there screaming and crying, and you were up there for so long, and you were not eating. So any normal person, 3 days eating is a person, but you were up there and you weren't eating. A normal human being has to eat and not be swaying in a tree and being sick. How did you deal with that? I mean, you had to have emotions of discouragement, like, why the hell am I in this tree? What am I doing here? Did you have any of that?
I did have some of that, yeah. The hunger strike in the last 2 weeks of the tree sit, when the CHP occupation happened and when Caltrans did all their work, was a whole different lifetime up in the tree. I mean, the first month and a half or so, without that intensity going on was a whole different story, and that was really when the community is what kept me up in that tree, because I was like, why am I here? Like, nothing is going on. What's going on the ground? I haven't touched a person in a really long time, and this is not how I normally live my life. And being a farmer, who does have a job. I have a job. I get up at 6:30 every
as a
morning.
farmer,
and
you're on the land and you're touching things and you're feeling things. Yeah.
So it was just a really big adjustment for me physically also, to just be a super active person, and then I'm sitting in a tree, and then my body, you know, got used to it, but it was definitely, you know, I definitely had moments where I was like, this is like not fun.
Like,
you know?
what am I doing this for?
Yeah. But then, you know, like I said, all the encouragement and the support from the community, like people just, I was in that tree. People weren't like, oh, she's coming, she's gonna come down, someone's gonna come down. It was like, she's up in that tree, but like, this is what we're doing, this is, you know. And so that, you know, that really helped, you know, kind of keep me up there. And then the last 2 weeks were really, really intense, and it was the first time in my life, I think, that I, you know, would go to bed and just actually dread the next day. And I felt so helpless. And I actually, going on the hunger strike, I was on hunger strike for 15 days, 6 of which I was in the tree. I guess 5.5 of which I was in the tree. I actually felt really empowered by making that decision, because I was up in this tree, and there's just this destruction and death and devastation going on the ground for 12 hours every single day. Was really intense, and I felt so helpless, even though I was up there and they weren't bothering with me. You know, I was like, I can't do anything from up here. Mm-hmm. And so I think
knowing that people on the ground were doing it for you, though, that had to be inspiring.
Well, but it's different, because, you know, I knew that the support extended farther than, you know, the people that were across the street holding signs. But once the HP showed up, it was different, you know, because I didn't see that support. I knew it was there, but it was just, you know, it's very isolating, you know, even though all these people were coming by and, you know, I'm waving down to you and talking to people on the phone all day. It's totally different than having a face-to-face conversation. Mm-hmm. And having discussions and being able to really read body language.
Physical touch and all that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Badger obviously would stay up day and night and not sleep to protect you. And many other people from the community. So that's why he's sitting next to you right now, because he's a huge bodyguard and supporter. Extraction Day is what I want to talk about. You willingly just said, I'm coming down, and that's that.
Not exactly. I actually can't talk too much about it.
And I understand that. Mm-hmm. But you didn't fight or anything. You, as the papers say, you just said, okay, I'm coming down.
Yeah, I didn't fight. It wasn't about fighting. It wasn't about being aggressive. Well, it was very aggressive from their end, but it wasn't about escalating.
It must have really, when you got taken into custody, been hard to see people like Will and Sarah, you know, Will sitting right on Highway 101 and putting his life in jeopardy.
I didn't find out most of what went on that day until much later in the day. It actually was the most enjoyable time I've ever had in jail, because not that I've been arrested a million times, I've just been arrested once before for Occupy, but it was you know, Sarah and Will got arrested after I did, but I actually was escorted by CHP to the hospital. I had to go get medical clearance because I had been on hunger strike for 6 days. My blood sugar was super, super low.
So
and
everybody took care of you, to a sense?
Yeah. I mean, CHP is required to get medical clearance, so once they got it, then I was able to, then they took me to the Caltrans office, which was also dually working as the CHP headquarters at the time, which is an interesting statement. So once I get there, you know, I see Will in the back of the cop car, and I was like, oh, what did you do? And then I have to go do the paperwork, and I come back out, and I hear, long live Warbler! And I was like, I couldn't tell where it was coming from. I thought someone was going to jump out of the bushes or something, and I was like, what? But it was Sarah in the back of another cop car. I just couldn't see her. And so and then we all got transported to the jail together, and that
And
was really
Sarah
great.
did run after the car when you got put in.
Sarah, and as well as my boyfriend and some other people were running after the car.
Do you want to mention his name, or?
His name is Luke.
Okay, Luke. Could you tell me a little bit about Solve?
Yeah. Solve is the acronym for Save Our Little Lake Valley. We just sort of, we formed out of the immediate need for action around this. This is a fight that's been going on for decades, and I realized that, you know, that I, as well as Solve, we're kind of standing on the shoulders of the people who have been working at this for decades, you know, and that includes people at the Willits Environmental Center. David and Ellen Durrell have just been fighting this, and they're like, no, where were you? And now we're all here, and we're fighting this because now is, you know, direct action is not something you just throw out there and just do all the time. It's our last resort. We have to do something because this is actually happening. And the thing that was, most people didn't believe it was going to happen because it's been going on for years and years and years. It's been canceled, it's been brought back, there hasn't been funding, there was funding. So when Solve started being like, this is going to happen, people were like, no, it's not going to happen. And then we got a tip that Caltrans was going to start, Caltrans contractors were going to start cutting trees on the north end where the tree sit was put up on January 28th. So the night of the 27th, we set up the tree sit, and I was in the tree on January 28th in the event that they were going to come in and cut the trees. And there was a big rally that day. And so anyway, Solve was a group that just formed out of this. All of a sudden, we had this immediate need to do something. So it was concerned people, very well educated, concerned people of this community coming in and talking about what are we going to do to save our community, you know, because I strongly believe that this bypass is just going to, you know, it's going to devastate our community in more than one way. We got together and we were making our meetings public. We said, hey, we want everyone, you know, who's concerned about this to come out. And if you have concerns and you have questions or you want to do something, come to a Solve meeting. We meet every day at this time, date, whatever. And so...
Is there a place or people, what's the best place for people that want to get involved? Where would they go? The website?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely recommend the website. The website's pretty all-encompassing of all of the different aspects of Solve. There's a lot going on. You know, we'd have a new office, which we're trying to get a schedule worked out for that. But we have the new office here, actually on the 101 between Jack in the Box and Country Skillet.
What's the address?
It's 716 Main Street.
Main Street.
Mm-hmm. So it's part of this. It's a building that's shared with a lot of people, but you'll see a sign that says SOLLV, which is Solve.
Okay.
And we encourage people. There's a phone number for it, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
The tree that got cut down right after you were removed is actually been salvaged. We did a rally for the valley here at Rec Grove, and they salvaged a tree. Do you know anything more about that? Because I don't have any more about that.
It's still there. It hasn't been retrieved by anybody. So, you know,
but the plan is to do something.
It hasn't been
with
chipped.
Okay.
Almost all the trees they cut down in that area, they just threw through a chipper and hauled off somewhere. And so there's a woman in the community who felt very strongly that this tree especially should not be just chipped. Like these trees, the remainder of these trees should be used in the community, if nothing else. And so she worked really hard. She talked to the contractors, and she said, we want this tree needs to go to the community. And so they agreed not to chip it. So it's still there. I think it's just a matter of
somebody getting it and doing something with it.
Exactly.
Do you know that person's name that's trying to do that?
Her name is Cheryl.
Cheryl, okay. I just want to recognize her.
We do have a week of action coming up, the week of Earth Day. We'll have, there will be flyers and posters and such things for that week of action and different activities for people to be able to participate in. You know, we have an educational forum that's going to happen. We have nonviolence trainings, nonviolence direct action training. There's actually a dance this Saturday to benefit Save Our Little Lake Valley, and that is going to be at the Grange Saturday night at 7, I think, with Ed Reinhardt and the Burning Sensations, and I think that will be really fun, a really good way to kick off the coming week. All the money that's made is donated to Solve and the musicians, I think. But that money will be donated to the Little Lake Legal Fund, Little Lake Valley Legal Fund.
I love that.
And so because we are working on a separate lawsuit from the federal lawsuit that's being filed by EPIC and the Center for Biological Diversity, etc. The tree, the no trespassing sign went up like the day before the sit, and it was actually basically at the base of the tree. So you know, and then later on, when CHP occupied, they put a gate across the access road that said no trespassing, which was, you know, 100, 200 yards in front of the tree.
They wouldn't allow us to be on the other side of the highway once they came in and occupied the area. And so at that point we moved to the other side of the highway in order not to get arrested. And then they decided that we should be up on the hill rather than down by the road, and so we moved up on the hill. This is all complying with orders from the CHP. And then Caltrans decided they didn't really want us up on the hill because they wanted to work up there and this kind of thing, not that we were stopping them from working up there. And so we moved back down the hill. We were always moving in compliance with orders from the CHP.
One of the guys in the community named Mark had been offering, came across the street for the support almost every day with a box of donuts and always offered them to CHP. CHP never took them. And then this one day there were a lot of officers. There were like eight or nine police CHP vehicles, and one of them had brought donuts, and one of them had walked across the street and offered donuts to, you know, the three or so people that were there, and then walked back across. I did see that happen, and it was the same day that they started work on the other side, and pushed them back down the hill, and then, you know, within a few days we were out of there.
In the paper, it was actually printed that, you know, that's kind of how it goes with these sorts of things. They say, well, they're not going to allow access because they want to get you out of the tree. It's just a normal thing, or whatever.
They actually, when I requested being able to send water and food to her, they said, well, that's up, the CHP said, well, that's up to Caltrans. Because the CHP was working for Caltrans at that point. They weren't working for the people anymore. They were just enforcers for Caltrans.
Yeah, but you did decide to go on the hunger strike even like
That
the
was
day
well
after that happened. Yeah.
I went on hunger strike
the 28th.
The 20th, and like I said, it was actually a kind of an empowering thing for me because I was feeling so helpless, and it was kind of a little bit of a different state of consciousness, you know. Just having to refocus on what was going on.
Well, I thank you guys so much for taking the time to sit with me, and hopefully we can, you know, just let people know all of it, you know, because I don't think, you know, from papers, who decides to read the newspaper and who doesn't, or who decides to go to the library and who doesn't, or talking to everybody in the street and our community. I think it's really great for people to know you and everything that's involved.
And I thank you a lot too, because I do feel like, you know, after the big April 2nd extraction day, lots of media, people are now just like, oh, well, now it's over. But it's certainly not over. You know, Solve is still here, and we plan to be here as long as Caltrans plans to be here. And so we have a lot of things going on, and I encourage people, if they are just curious or want to get involved, to kind of check out the website, which is savelittlelakevalley.org, and that is a really excellent way to just kind of keep updated on what's going on.
I thank you very much for taking the time, both of you, to be here, and I really, really hope that we can all have peace in our community in whatever way it happens. I really do, and I thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
You're awesome. Can I have a hug?
Good.